On behalf of the Auditing and Assurance Standard Board of the Institute of Chartered Accountants of India, I take great pleasure in extending a very warm and a very hearty welcome to all of you, all the members present here, for this webinar on the Digital Balance Confirmation Portal that's going to be launched very, very shortly. Now, what's the relevance of a balance confirmation portal for us? We have a standard on auditing that says that is SA 505 that speaks about external confirmations. And as we all know, external confirmations are an extremely powerful audit procedure to build audit evidence. Nothing like a third party telling you that the numbers stated in the financial statements of your client are true and correct, more than true and fair as well. So it's in this context that as auditors, we've always been facing a challenge. We write to a bank, the confirmation comes, doesn't come, comes on time, sometimes comes after the date, sometimes, while we have our deadlines to keep. So this was flagged as a major concern by the entire fraternity. And the other challenge was each bank would confirm in their own manner, whatever they thought was right and fit. And although we had balanced confirmation formats, we'd send a particular format, the bank will respond back in a particular format. So I'm delighted to welcome our Vice Chairman of the Board, C. Ravi Patwaji from Calcutta and the East of India. And I also have great pleasure in extending a very warm welcome to Mr. Eric Anklesaria, who's part of the PSB Alliance, that is the Public Sector Bank Alliance. So what's this digital balance confirmation portal all about? So I'll just take a few minutes to explain what this is all about, and then over to Ravi ji, and after that, Eric would explain this whole process in detail for all of us. So now I'd given you the problem statement. The problem statement was there was a challenge in obtaining bank confirmations. We were mailing, we were couriering. The whole process was far from seamless. So it's in this context that the Public Sector Bank Alliance decided to work with ICAI with a service provider, which is NESL, which is the first information utility that's been set up in India. And it was set up primarily in the context when IBC was launched. And all banks are supposed to provide their loan details, etc., to NESL above a certain threshold. Now, what does this digital confirmation portal mean? It means there is a certain portal where your client can register. So he registers or she registers. The auditor can register. So actually, these two processes can happen simultaneously. So I come in as an auditor. I register myself with my membership number, and the portal speaks seamlessly to the ICAI data and validates me as a chartered accountant, as possibly a statutory auditor who's willing to offer his services or has offered his services as a statutory auditor. So the chartered accountant registration is done. Then your client comes into the portal and registers themselves, XYZ Private Limited, registers themselves in the portal, and then says, okay, he or she is my chartered accountant. So what happens? The client is linked to the auditor. And then the auditor proceeds. The external confirmation procedures are very clear. It has to be a direct confirmation by the chartered accountant from the bank, from the statutory auditor to the bank, and not just a statutory audit, right? We can take confirmation procedures for any kind of engagement that we do. It could be an AUP, an agreed upon procedure. It could be a special purpose financial statement. It could be a certificate. It could be anything. So then what happens when the auditor makes the request in the portal? It transfers seamlessly to the bank, and the bank is going to respond to this and provide you a dedicated confirmation. Now, the next important question that you would ask is, who are the banks who are getting covered? Eric would obviously explain this in greater detail, but 8 public sector banks, 8 banks have already agreed to come into this portal. So that's where it stands. So if you are the statutory auditor of a client who has any form of banking relationship with any of these banks, and if your client consents and provides and links you as the auditor, and you make the request as a chartered accountant, as a statutory auditor, or anybody signing a certificate, the bank is obliged to provide the confirmation to you directly. So in a nutshell, this is the process. I'm sure you'd all appreciate that this is something that's completely transformational. In a sense, it's not very easy to do. And that's where the PSB Alliance has come in and NESL has come in and they've developed a portal. Now you might ask me, so can I log in tomorrow and get this done? Well, we'll all have to wait for some more time. Why? Because this portal is being developed now and it's launched on a beta mode, and 3 banks have already kind of signed into this. So if you have a banking relationship, if your client has a banking relationship with Canara Bank, Punjab National Bank, or UCO Bank, you're ready to help us test. So we are on the UAT phase of this project, and we'd like as many chartered accountants and your clients to participate in this development process in the UAT server to help us. And once we go live, you can come on the production server and do the same thing all over again. I mean, it's a separate instance. And it's here that this webinar is launched, primarily to seek your support for this testing process. We've internally done some testing and we don't find any challenges. But for an idea such as this, we'll need to socialize it a lot more to understand if there are going to be any challenges, both from the bank's side, the client side, or the auditor's side. And that's the context of this entire webinar when we are planning to actually showcase this new development to you. And we're hoping to go live on this in a month or two. And this would drastically bring down the amount of time that you spend on an audit engagement. And, very often we talk of efficient and effective audit. And people keep asking, what can ICI do to enable effective and efficient audit? And this is one such offering from the AASB. And so this whole process is going to be so seamless. You just have to store the balance confirmation format in your working papers and you're good to go. With these few words of introduction, I'd extend a very, very warm and a very hearty welcome to all of you once again. And my name, for those who don't know, is Sri Priya Kumar. I'm a member of the Central Council of the Institute of Chartered Accountants of India. And for the present term, I head the Auditing and Assurance Standards Board. And so, and once again, wishing you all a very happy financial year, which is going to come now. And it's over to Raviji for his opening remarks.
Thank you so much, Chairperson Madam. I welcome each and everyone present for this program. This is a very important webinar. Friends, a very good afternoon to each one of you. As the Chairperson Madam has already explained, obtaining confirmation from banks is an issue in audit today. Most of the times, the banks do not reply, and many of the auditors ultimately resort to requesting the client to procure it from the bank and give it to us, which of course does not fulfill the requirement of SA 505 because it has to directly come to us, not through the client. Considering this and many other issues involved, the delay involved, the Indian Bankers IBA and NESL has jointly developed this digital confirmation portal, digital balance confirmation portal. We are the knowledge partners. We at ICI, we are the knowledge partners for this. And we are quite sure that once this becomes a reality, the quality of audit will increase manifold. Getting external confirmations, especially from banks and NBFCs, will become extremely easy. So this portal is basically going to connect the auditor, the auditee, and the information provider, that is the banks and the NBFCs. Mr. Eric will explain the whole procedure on how it is going to work. I will request each one of you to kindly hear what is there for him to say. And in addition to that, we will also try to have programs in major places where you may please come, check the UAT version, try and see how it is functioning. We had put it up for beta testing at the All India Management Committee members meeting also at Delhi. And many of the members actually were quite satisfied with it. As Madam has already told you that 8 public sector banks and 1 private sector bank are already interested in it. And very soon all the banks for sure will join in. With these opening remarks, I once again welcome all of you to this webinar and hand it over to the organizer. Thank you very much.
Thank you very, very much, Raviji. And it's now over to Eric. And before we start this, I must also place on record my sincerest appreciation to the 1,048 members who have joined in today. And Eric will do this as he's an expert and he's walked us through this journey for the last 6 to 8 months in this. So he'd clarify everything. But if you have any specific questions, Vivek, we have an option, right, where members can put in their questions, and
Yes.
those questions would be read out to Eric for him to answer. And so it's a huge round of applause and thanks to the 1,048 members who have joined on a webinar on a warm Saturday afternoon. And before I conclude, I'm also extremely thankful to the efforts of the AASB, and we have CA Vivek here today, who's part of the team helping us with this webinar. So thank you very much once again, ladies and gentlemen. So, and it's over to Eric now.
Thanks a lot. Thank you, Shripriya. Thank you, Mr. Ravi, and welcome all the 1,048 members. I hope I'm audible to everybody very clearly. I think, sometime back, about closely about 8 to 9 months back, we were approached by IBA with a particular problem or a challenge which the Institute of Chartered Accountants had gone to IBA for. That how could they basically get the balance confirmations digitally from all the banks and the financial institutions which they kind of audit. So yeah, there were no particular references that were available globally where such a thing was done. The first thing was, do we have standardized formats? We actually went back to the banks and found out. And to our surprise, it was that, as Shripriya rightly mentioned, that each bank used to give the confirmations in different formats. The information was also very inconsistent. And the majority of the times there was huge amount of manual effort, both from the auditor side as well as from the bank side to do that. Naturally, they were prone to frauds and errors because they were 99% of the time printed on dot matrix printers, where it was very, very easy for anybody to either change the balances and do anything with it. So it was a real challenge, I think, which we were faced with. And we had to design a system which didn't exist, a reference of that didn't exist, and also engage with entities who both the banks as well as ICA and everybody would be very, very comfortable to onboard because as we all know, we were on the anvil of the entire DPDP Act that was actually coming out. So that was a big challenge that was hovering. So which is that kind of entity which everybody would trust? I think that was the biggest question because, clients were parting away with their information. Banks were giving access directly up to the core banking, treasury, and, trade finance systems to be able to pull these things. So everybody needed somebody who they could trust in. And that's the reason that PSB Alliance was actually roped in. And we then roped in NESL, who was our technical service provider, to actually build this platform with us. The reason for choosing NESL was very simple. One, they were already an information utility. Banks were giving them all the credit information that was already flowing to them. So naturally, they were a trusted partner and integrated back, at least on the credit side, with all the financial institutions in the country. Nevertheless, the information was not online. It was not real time because banks used to feed in this information at various points in time to them. Somebody had a frequency of 1 week, somebody 15 days, somebody 1 month. But two issues that we were able to sort out there. Trust was a very big issue. Confidentiality and maintenance of data, that we could sort it out with NESL, and integration to the banks. So this was a natural fit and a choice for us to be able to build this platform for us. So that's how we actually embarked onto this project of which we call as the Digital Balance Confirmation Project. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I'll like to run you through a short presentation to give you a flavor of what digital balance confirmation is all about. And, I would just want to make sure, Vivek, that my screen is going to be completely visible. So just give me a second for that.
Eric, I just have a small request.
Sure.
Once in 5 to 7 minutes in your webinar, please reiterate that this is still in the UAT.
Oh,
So
yeah.
if members are going to go and try it or something like that, they should remember that they are doing it as a user acceptance testing project now, and they will have to replicate. Their clients have to log in, and they will have to log in separately when the real go live happens. And that ICI and PSB will be very thankful to whoever who can, support this project.
Absolutely. So I will make sure that, every time a particular section ends in my presentation, I'd reiterate that fact. I hope, Vivek, the complete screen is now visible to everybody.
Yes, sir, it is visible, sir.
Perfect. So first what we'll do is we'll run through the presentation that I've put across, and then I'll be happy to answer any of the questions. We can take the questions, read them out, and we can answer them. If there is anything that we cannot answer, we'll make sure that we get back to you as soon as possible to be able to make sure that, all your queries are, satisfactorily resolved. So first of all, ladies and gentlemen, we talked about PSB Alliance. A lot of people on this webinar would really be curious as to what this entity is, from where it has come, what does it exactly do? Because I don't know, many of you all might have not heard the name. We are not as prominent as an ICI or an IBA or something of that sort. So just a few, maybe one or two slides on what is PSB all about. So PSB Alliance is basically an umbrella entity created by all the 12 public sector banks together, everybody owning an equal stake into the company, with an intent of providing common IT and business platforms to all the 12 public sector banks. So what was happening is that whenever there was a need, all the public sector banks had different ways of procuring, different ways of standardization for things which were absolutely non-competitive within each other. So what happened is that why should we have 12 different procurements? Why should 12 different banks do 12 different things differently? Can we achieve economies of scale, standardization, etc.? So there was a need felt by DFS, by IBA, and by the banks that let's create a common entity which will take care of all these common IT and business platforms. The whole idea was that whatever we are doing, whatever we are building is across for the banking industry. So mainly we serve the 12 of the largest public sector banks in India, but we also undertake projects like this digital balance confirmation, etc., which is for the entire banking industry as well. All right. So that's what we really do. So we work as a center of excellence for a lot of tech and agile solutions. Wherever there are industry problems, PSB Alliance actually comes in to resolve that through tech solutions. May it be asset tracing, may it be basically collateral monitoring, may it be land monitoring, etc. We run a couple of projects, which are very, very core and integral to the functioning of the banks. What we don't necessarily do is we do not enter into any area where there is a competitive advantage or disadvantage for any of the banks, right? So that's not our aim and ambition. Our aim and ambition is to make sure that wherever there is anything which is common, we are the partner of choice for the 12 banks. So it's not necessary, once again, as I reiterate, that we work only for the 12 banks. They are our main stakeholders, but we work for the banking industry altogether. Right? Our main aim is to drive standardization and a common service delivery model. So whenever a customer was to approach PSB Alliance, they should have the same look and feel of what they would get an SBI or a UCO bank to a Punjab and Sind bank, right? So that's our aim and ambition, what we do. We definitely in the bargain reduce a lot of duplication efforts and drive economies of scale. That's definite because of the sheer capacity at which we buy and standardize things at. And we are a central agency even for the Department of Financial Services or the governments to drive any regulatory initiative or agenda, like we are doing today with yourselves and MCA to basically drive the entire digital balance confirmation agenda. So we do drive a lot of regulatory and government agendas as far as that is concerned. As we speak today, we literally started work in literally 2023. As we are today, we would be about a year, 2 years old right now. Our main projects are Jan Samarth. Jan Samarth is nothing else but entire credit-linked government schemes of the Government of India. The Prime Minister's all credit-linked government schemes, whether it be subsidy or whether it be credit guarantee schemes, they all operate through us. Everything through the Jan Samarth portal. We provide doorstep banking services. We are all used to, if somebody is a wealth management customer, they're all used to the banks coming to their doorstep to provide any kind of services. We do the same for the public sector banks. We provide public sector banks customers, whether it be regular customers like the retail, agri, MSMEs or corporates, as well as those who are differently abled and senior citizens for banking services directly at the doorstep at very, very nominal prices or rates, right? We run projects for agricultural land and collateral monitoring and asset tracing. We've tied up with all the banks there. We work back with the Central Bureau of Investigation in actually doing asset tracing in India for a lot of default borrowers, etc. We have a common portal for all SURFACE properties listing and auctions. For all the 12 public sector banks, we also have HDFC, Axis, and ICICI also on the portal, and IDBI on the portal, where they sell all their SURFACE properties to the portal. IBBI has also been brought onto the portal. Complete EOI process of all the RPs, as well as the entire auctioning process of IBBI is also handled by this portal. So this portal started somewhere in July 2024. Currently, as we speak, as we end the year, we would have auctioned approximately about 74,000 crore properties, 74,000 crores in terms of value, about 130,000 properties, and banks have realized close to about 7,500 crores in this period of time. Right, so that's again a very flagship project that we run. This is all started from 2023 onwards, whatever I'm talking about. The digital balance confirmation is what we are all here to hear about. We are launching the first digital marketplace for supply chain finance, where all the fintechs, anchors, etc., can come onto a common platform. We will have the BRE and the rule engines built in for all the public sector banks as well as the NBFCs, and based on the credit underwriting criteria, it would automatically flow to these banks and they could underwrite them. So it's a complete marketplace for supply chain finance. Very similar, but highly advanced in terms of if one was to compare it to TREDS. We do work for the Reserve Bank of India for the DEF accounts, that's the inoperative account identification and activation, again using technology. And we are also setting up for the public sector banks the whole public cloud infrastructure. 2025-26, we're working on common platforms for ESG, BRSR reporting. We are setting up the first integral collection platform for all the 12 PSU banks, whether it be the technology, whether it be the feet on street recovery agents, etc. Everything would be set up by us. We are putting in a platform in place for common consortium lending, so that once a proposal is underwritten by a lead bank, automatically the other banks are able to take that into account. And we are also working with technologies for deepfake recognition, because the more the increase in the video KYCs, etc., the more is the chances of all these mule accounts, etc., getting opened. So if you see, majority of the projects that we run and undertake are things which either there is an industry issue or a problem, or it is an industry-wide initiative that one needs to take, right? Now, I think all of you are aware of the background, and that's why I'm going to be very, very quick onto the background. So it was a requirement under the Standards of Auditing 505, where external confirmations were mandatory to be sought. They could either be sought in the manual effort, or during COVID time, there was a prevalent practice of getting it through emails or through any other method. What it also meant that the auditor had to really safeguard these confirmations that have been received. They were all stamped, stored, and they were kept in, either with some agency or something in the offices of these people, because they needed to be procured at any point in time. If there was any kind of a inquiry or anything, they had to produce these things. So that was the purpose of getting the audit evidence as per the standards. So I think Sripriya really touched upon this point. that evidence was more reliable when it was obtained independently and directly from the source. I think these two words are very, very important. These were the basic premises and the principles on which the digital balance confirmation platform was really built. Independence and directly obtained from the banks. You had a lot of intermediary agencies in the past who were offering these services, but these were neither independent nor directly obtained from the end customers. There was a huge issue about storage of these and retrieval of these when it was required, either from an inquiry perspective or for any reason where they had to be reproduced back. So, it was a lot of challenge to reproduce that when it was in the manual way. Right. So based on these principles and taking into consideration the various issues that were faced time and again by the auditing fraternity, we actually came up with an architecture for a digital balance confirmation portal. What the digital balance confirmation portal really looks like in a very high level schematic way is that on the left hand side, you have a web portal, and later on we'll also be coming up with a mobile app through which the digital balance confirmations can be accessed. So members of the ICAI, banks and auditing companies really go through that. We have a central engine, which is the heart and soul of this entire portal, which has many smaller modules like consent management. We have the authentication, certificate generation, billing, renewal and changes which happen, reporting and MIS, and payments. They are all integrated as a part of a common cohesive platform in the end. And on the right hand side, we have financial institutions or any MLIs that are connected, whether it be public sector banks today. Later on, it can be, AMFI and all of that. From wherever any confirmation needs to be sought by you. First phase is we are focusing on the banks. I think as we move forward and once the portal actually stabilizes, we'll be moving on to others like AMFI, BSC, NSC, etc., and all of that. So they all come onto the right hand side wherever it's there. And they're tightly integrated and coupled together. And we use external APIs also, like for the payments and settlements, we use a payment gateway. We use other third-party integrations, and wherever it requires later on for us, we already have a connecting pipe to CERSAI. As you have already seen that we do a lot of work on the agriculture and property collateral monitoring. We have direct integrations. Being a kind of a organization which is owned by public sector banks, we do have that access to the government for various direct integrations as we currently speak. Right. I think very important. Who are the key stakeholders in this entire balance confirmation portal, right? So, because you will hear these terminologies many times as we move forward, not only today, but as we actually go on to the usage or the UAT, etc. You are going to experience these terminologies very often. So we have basically three very key important, members who play a role, which we generally refer to as stakeholders. One is the auditee. Very simple. Auditee is someone who is getting audited. For example, corporates, banks, trusts, LLPs, whoever it's there. The person who's getting audited is an auditee. Any company is getting audited. You have the auditor, which is nothing else but yourselves. The person who is auditing the auditee out there. And then we have an information provider. Right now, the word used very carefully, we use it as information provider because we don't want to restrict it to banks. Banks is one of an information provider to us, right? You will have, as we move forward into the portal, you will have the share, you will have the stock exchanges coming in, you will have mutual funds coming in. So they all become information provider. Anybody who is generating this certificate is an information provider as far as the portal is concerned. Right. I think you all have gone through these issues about balance confirmations. One, it was a completely manual, very labor intensive process, both from the auditor side, from the bank side, as well as from the corporates. Hundreds of letters needed to be signed by the company, authenticating the auditor to get the certificates directly from the banks. These had to be couriered to respective branches. Wherever it was centralized, it was an easier process. Wherever it was decentralized, it was a nightmare for auditors. Questions came in, who would make the payments for this? Most of the times, it was the auditors who used to make the payments to get the certificates. So a lot of OPs going, back and forth. Third thing is reliability. These were generally printed on dot matrix printers, etc. Very, very easily can be tampered. There is no trail of the tampering that has happened also, right? Because it was paper based. So if somebody was to change that and give it to you, there was an issue. Because banks had to do their entire year-end closing work, they were also flooded with requests for these balance confirmations during that particular period of time only. So there was a lot of errors were happening and a lot of delays were happening. And as a result of which, many times the auditors used to have qualified statements, or have to have multiple people coordinating with these banks and branches to get these statements from there. So I think overall, there was a big challenge that the entire fraternity or the community was dealing with. So now, how does this digital balance confirmation portal really work in a schematic manner? So let's understand that very, very clearly. Right? So it's a completely web-based and a digital portal, can be accessed from any location. Currently, we have geofenced it to India, right? So it can be accessed within the boundaries of India itself currently. It is completely paperless and workflow based. There is absolutely no manual intervention here that is required. We have a direct API integration to ICAI, where we check the legitimacy of the auditor who's actually seeking that balance confirmation at 3 intervals. I'll take you through that when we go down to the workflow. I'll take you through that completely. It's completely consent-based and prescribes to all the necessary guidelines that are issued under the DPDP Act, because this was a very, very, very critical issue which the banks also had, or any financial institution would have in today's day and age, because the penalties here are drastic out here. Right? They are completely system generated without any manual intervention at the back end by the banks. So the authenticity, reliability is more than sufficient than you could get from anything of that sort. They're completely digitally signed by the banks. So there is nothing where, it's a signature based or a wet signature based. They are digitally signed through the DSC of the bank. They are one other thing. We've kept a separate module for all the enforcement agencies, where any certificate, suppose today you download a PDF certificate from this portal, somebody goes and changes that certificate. If we get the number of that certificate, we can reproduce that certificate exactly as it is. And if you change any word, comma, or anything, the hashtags in the entire certificate will change. Right? So it is not, technically, it is impossible for you to replicate, duplicate, or fraudulently create that certificate. We at any point in time can say whether this certificate is generated out of the system or it's tampered. Right? So we have that mechanism, and we have a separate module built in for enforcement agencies to be able to do that for themselves. Right? Where again, there is no intervention required from our side. We give them that module, they can themselves go and check. By putting in the number, they would come to know what the original certificate and the duplicate certificate would look like. It's completely API based. Completely. So end to end, it's connected through APIs, including into the bank's core banking systems and servers. Right. So second most, I think, important thing, there is a very standardized way of reporting. So ICAI in its board had prepared the entire format. I will run you through the format, but on a very broad scale, it includes all your liabilities, all your assets. It includes all the non-balance sheet items like LCs, BGs, bank guarantees. It also includes treasury things like money markets, etc., bullion, and all of that. So I think it's a pretty exhaustive certificate for all opened accounts as well as for closed accounts during the period of the audit, and also tells you about the status of the account, whether it's a regular account, whether it's an SMA1, SMA0, whether the account has been classified as an NPA, etc. So I think most of the information that you would seek as auditors is now going to be available to you with a single click under one single portal out there. So I think that's again a very, very critical thing as far as the fraternity is concerned. All the charges, one very, very critical and important point here, the members are not charged at all. There is zero charge. The way that we developed this portal and the discussions that we had with ICAI is that no member should be paying fees on this portal. So none of the fraternity, none of the members of the ICAI have to pay any fees on the portal. The collections are done directly from the end customer. So all your hassles about maintaining those expense sheets and having all those issues, and you had to pay in advance and then recover from the customers, have all completely gone in from here. Only once the payments are made are the certificates generated. The certificates are not sent to you. You have to log in into the portal and download that, right? These certificates would be stored for right now. There is no period which we have defined. It's for infinity that we'll be storing these certificates currently as we speak, right? So that's the way that this portal is going to be functioning, and the entire payment charge mechanism has been taken care of for all the members. Most important thing, as I mentioned to you, it maintains complete audit trials and logs. Complete. Who generated, when it was generated, how it was generated, from which machine ID it was generated, everything what is required by any forensic auditor to do a forensic audit on this. Right. So that's the level of security and standards that have been built into, because ultimately there is no such I would say single portal in the country which would connect to all the systems of all the banks where PII information as well as financial information is kept, right? So you can understand the kind of scrutiny and the kind of complexity which we had to build this system with, conforming to the guidelines of RBI at one end, security guidelines of each and every individual bank. So we had to take the highest standards and thereby drill down to actually make that. Because once you take the highest one, then naturally you have compliances going on. But this is not the end of the thing. Every 6 months, every this thing, there are different changes which come in the RBI policy as far as security standards, etc. go, or cyber security goes. So now each one need not be bothered about making those changes at their end. We will make it at one end and it will get percolated to everybody. So I think these are some, I'm just trying to highlight to you, it seems very simple that, it's very simple to get a balance or get something, but when you look about from the complexity standpoint, it's a pretty complex architecture that one really needs to build upon that. I think we have approximately around 16 key modules out there, starting from entity registration to entity to user management to consent and payments, billing, access, to certificates, etc. Verification of what I was talking to you about, the entire enforcement part was the verification of the balance certificates. That's a critical part of it. The entire request for the balance certificates, the auditor assignments, and then the MISs that need to be provided to different agencies. To ICI may be wanting very differently, a bank may be wanting very differently, an auditor may be wanting very differently. So there are dashboards and intelligent MIS systems that have been created for each category and class of users within the system. As Sripriya rightly told me to keep on mentioning that, this is currently under beta version of UAT under testing. We have approximately 6 to 7 banks completely ready for testing, and all the 12 public sector banks are going to come onto the portal. There is no exception to this. As it is under the aegis of the IB, etc., it's not only for public sector, but all the banks are going to come onto this portal. We see no reason why any bank would not come onto the portal, and why you as auditors would not recommend any bank to, or any of your corporates to actually come onto the portal, because here you don't have the hassles about accounts getting missed out, additional accounts getting added onto this, because it's all based on PAN. And today for every account in the customer information file, the PAN is mandatory. So it pulls out all accounts sitting at one centralized place for a particular bank based on the PAN. So again, from an auditing standpoint, you don't have to have the hassle about whether something has been missed out, something has been added, something has been left out, Now we come down to the workflow, how this actually works, So we have, as I said, there are 3 main stakeholders in this thing. You have the auditee, you have the auditor, and you have the information provider, which is currently the banks. Later on, it might change to, anybody. So the auditee basically goes and registers. Everybody has to register onto this portal, whether you're an auditee, whether you're a bank. For a bank, we create the user IDs and passwords, and same ways for the auditor. Everybody comes onto the portal and does their part in terms of registration. Right? For a bank, we create the users who's going to be operating this portal on behalf of the bank, right? And ultimately, the auditor has to register its firm and also has to register the members under the firm, right? So you have a concept about a firm, and then you have either partners or members or directors or whatever you call within the firm. The portal has the ability for you to choose the firm and also assign specific partners or individuals for that particular audit. So that has also been taken care of. It's not that, if I give access to, let's say, ABC firm, everybody in ABC can see anybody's and everybody's information. That's not there, right? Because there are Chinese walls supposed to be maintained between the partners itself of a respective firm also. So we've taken care of that also, right? The auditee, very simple, has to do the bank linkage. That is, the company has to say in which all banks that is have the accounts. We don't want the bank account numbers at all. There are no account numbers to be mentioned. Everything is based on PAN. Right? So the auditee basically says that he has accounts in, let's say, State Bank of India, Bank of Baroda, UCO Bank. So all banks, whichever are registered in this country as banks, will be applicable to him. Right? He selects that. The information goes directly to the bank. The banks already have the mobile numbers registered of the particular corporate. So in two ways it can do. Automatically through an OTP to the auditee. That was such and such request has come. If he enters the OTP, that means it is the same person who's requested for it. Or second, if they don't have a concept of OTP, they can even do it manually. 99% of the banks are all through OTP verification. But sometimes the systems of the banks are not advanced. When we move on to cooperatives, RRBs, the regional rural banks, etc., that is the reason for keeping this manual verification also open. If you look at it in the parlance of what was really happening in the manual world, you actually had the auditee sign the letters, and it was then given to the banks. The banks used to manually verify, first of all, whether this is the authorized signatory who is given this information. It's not some fraudulent person who's playing that, right? And then they used to allow the auditor to actually take those certificates. Now this is again digitized in a manner where directly an OTP goes. Today, every company has an OTP based mechanism if they have to do any payments through internet or mobile banking or anything like that. So it's replicated the actual manual process into a digitized process, right? So they accept the linkage. Then what happens is that the auditee assigns the auditor, who's the firm for which the auditing is going to happen. The auditor then assigns the members. So wherever you see the ICAI logo, right, at 3 intervals, we are directly checking with the ICAI system whether at those points in time, the person is actually a valid auditor in the ICAI system, or there is no, debarment or anything that has happened. At 3 points in time, we check it in the entire process. One, when the linkage is happening. Second, when the time the auditor assignment is happening. And third is when the actual certificate is generated. Because at any point in time, the status of a company can change within the ICAI also. You might have some proceedings against that company where you put that company into a blacklist or whatever you call it as. So at all these 3 intervals, we check whether whoever is requesting for the certificate is a valid member of ICAI. The certificate is then requested for. Again, an API is triggered where a payment and a consent is made. And the final certificate is generated through the API, which is digitally signed and made available to the auditor to download. We are not going to email anything. We are not going to do anything. It will have to be coming onto our system so that we capture the actual IP address from where he's coming in, logging in, downloading it, etc. And it is again, all of this are validated through OTPs and user IDs and passwords that have been created. This is what the certificate actually looks like. So as I told you, it has basic information about the entity. It has all the account details. This is for the liabilities, right? Open as well as closed. At every point in time, you'll see open accounts as well as closed accounts, right? Then you have all the credit side information. What is his rate of interest, what is his drawing power, limit, excess, repayment, how it has been, whether it's secured, unsecured, whether the account has been restructured or not restructured, again, for all open as well as for closed accounts. Then you have all your off-balance sheet items, all your letters of credit, bank guarantees, etc. You have irregularities and defaults for all the credit accounts which have been there, whether he is a defaulter, what is the nature of the default, what is the total outstanding, what is the days past due, what is the SMA status, SMA 0, 1, 2, 3, whatever it is there. And other information is nothing else but from the treasury side, all your MTM losses, gains, etc., which are a part of the treasury system. So basically, this entire certificate was designed by ICAI. Now, there can be instances, sir, that, banks may provide you with all the information in the certificate, but if certain aspects or certain systems of the banks are not digitized, for example, somebody doesn't have a treasury system, right? Then they will not be able to provide you with certain information. If somebody doesn't have a trade finance system, then they will not be able to provide you with all these off-balance sheet items like bills, LCs, guarantees in different currencies and all of that. So it also, we have to take into consideration that the level of maturity within the bank systems might be very different. When we talk about all the PSUs and top private banks, everybody will be able to provide everything. But as soon as you go down to cooperatives, RRBs, DCCBs, and PACs, which are the last mile, the computerization in these banks or financial institutions might be very, very different. So even though the certificate is designed for all the information, you might have participants who give you all complete information. You might have participants which give you certain things which are blank. That's just because these systems are not completely digitized, right? This is like how a payment dashboard would look like. So as I told you, there is no payment to be made by the auditors out here. The banks will be able to see what is their payment. Only once a payment is made and a consent is given, can the certificate be available for downloading. We've also given you a CSV format because we do understand that chartered accountants need it in Excel. Many times they have to do a lot of calculations to match certain things, etc. So that will also be provided to you. A data file will be provided to you in CSV format also, where you can easily download that, do your complete additions, deletions, compilations on the complete thing, right? I think last section that now we are coming on to, how does it really benefit the entire fraternity, the banks, everybody of that sort. So first of all, it's one of its, I think you should be very proud as ICI that I don't think there is anybody in the world who's done this. It can become a model for other countries as well, right? To design a system of this sort, which is highly complex in its nature, as I mentioned to you earlier. It's completely digitized. There is no manual intervention out here. If the backend system has data and is computerized within the bank, you will have that, else you will not have that. So there's no manual intervention. There's nothing where somebody comes and fills in something, right? So all those issues about fraudulent activities, etc., that's all very well taken care of. It's completely controlled by the auditing entity, the consent mechanism, etc. So we comply to all the DPDP regulations, guidelines that have been given. It's completely tamper-proof. Every certificate has a unique hashtag. As soon as we put the hashtag into the system, you can come to know whether the certificate is generated by the digital balance confirmation portal or it is messed around with, right? There is nothing else between that. It's there or it's not there. It's just a 0 and 1 binary. It's completely standardized. Now, no different formats, no different information. You might have complete information or you might have less information. That's the only variant which is going to be there as far as this is concerned. And it's completely centralized. You don't have to remember account numbers. You don't have to remember customer IDs, nothing at all. If the PAN is there, you will fetch all the records. So it's very easy for you if there is, if the balance sheet has certain items which are not matching with it, either the information provided by the client is incorrect or he is not provided the PAN number at all in the banks, right? That can be the only possibilities that is there. It's completely consent-based, right? And completely at 3 points in time verified with ICI for the existence of that member on that point in time, even including till the last stage that the certificate gets generated out of the system, right? It's definitely efficient and cost saving for everybody. For the banks, it was involving huge amount of manual effort, both in terms of printing, their manpower, which was going behind that. All of that is greatly saved at their end as well as at the corporate end now. He was also dedicating huge amount of time. And at your end, the number of people for large agencies which you needed to kind of coordinate with, have this kind of people and manpower on your roles to be able to get these certificates on time so that you could do a good job and not give a qualified statement, that all will be clearly met away with. As I said, our complete aim is to make sure that all the banks, so all the public sector banks are 100% on board for this thing. There is nobody who's going to be out. So this should cover literally 50 to 60% of any corporate which is there within the country. I don't think you will have any worthwhile corporate or an MSME which doesn't have accounts in this public sector banks. We have HDFCs and the other banks also joining in with the top 12 public sector and the top 12 private. I think we would cover 80% of the banking portfolio. Our endeavor or our request to you as members is that we have built this for ICAI in the best possible manner and the fashion that one could build in. It's for you to be continuously telling your customers that, please move away from this manual way. It's for you also. It's very important for you. It's time consumed, time saving for you. It's authenticity which gets delivered. It's a standardized way of reporting for you also, right? Which has been approved by your own boards. So I think you should be also one of the mascots, apart from IBA, which is actually getting advisories to the banks. You become one of the critical mascots for your customers, for your corporates, to make sure that wherever this portal is, the bank is, onboarded on this portal, you really discourage having manual certificates coming your way. I think this is all that, maybe I had to say from a presentation standpoint about the entire portal, how it's going to work, what's going to deliver. And I'm sure that in the coming times, at least for the next financial year, as we gear up, we will have this completely live with all the banks actually using that. Happy to take any questions from all of you. I hope this was useful for everybody.
Thanks so much, Eric. And I think this was really informative. Maybe in the next webinar, we can have a demo.
Yes.
That our members understand this better. But I have a few questions to start with.
Sure.
The first question is, if I've understood this right, the client will have to log in, register themselves, and identify their auditor. The auditor will have to log in, register themselves, and identify their client. Is that how it works?
Yes. So the client registers, comes onto the portal, registers itself.
So the client is the first one.
The client is the first one. It also selects what its bank's accounts are. It registers. It also tells you who your auditor is. The firm of the auditor, whoever it is there. The auditor then has to go in independently and log in. And then both of them are linked together. The client and the auditor get linked.
So, but the start point is the client.
Right.
The client first logs in and
without that, the auditor cannot be linked at all.
Correct.
Yes.
Because when the client links in, it only looks up to the ICAI system to ensure whether he's a chartered accountant or she's a chartered accountant.
Perfect. Right? Yeah, and a bona fide chartered accountant within your system.
Right. So that was my first question. So the client gets onboarded first, and at that stage, the chartered accountant whom he identifies is looked up to the ICAI system. So he's a valid CA. Then the chartered accountant logs in. So his name is already marked against a particular client. So he will select his clients. He
can only see those only. He cannot select.
Yeah, he'll see only those and he can call for confirmations. Now, my second question here was, if there is a joint audit situation, can a client select more than one auditor?
Absolutely. We have kept the provisions for joint audits also. He can select more than one. He can select specific partners also. Suppose, because in an auditing company, let's say any large company, you will have multiple partners and you don't want everybody to get access to everybody's accounts and vice versa. So it's not only selecting the company, but after that, actually selecting the auditors also.
Sure. Now, the third thing is, if an auditor resigns, whose responsibility is it to upload the resignation? Again, it has to be only the client, right? The client will have to select his new auditor.
Yes. So there are two mechanisms, right? We have kept a review and renewal mechanism. Every year, automatically, we'll be sending this out for confirmations to all the clients. They have to just simply say that it is renewed, no change. But in the intermediary, if there is some change, it is the responsibility of the client to intimate, change the auditors, etc. Right? So that responsibility is on the auditee client.
And when you're talking about an annual process, are you talking April? Are you going to do this in April or in September?
Every April we'll do it. Every April. Before April, not only April, but just before April, that
we can discuss this separately, because the auditors usually get appointed in September time when the AGMs come in. So maybe you can also upgrade this to twice a year.
Done. It's for us, it's a parameter, whether quarterly we want to do it, whether confirmations, review, renewal confirmations need to be set. It's a parameter for us, actually.
So you can take that to make this a little more live.
So biannually, I'm putting it as biannually.
Okay. And how much is the payment to be made by the auditee?
Not the payment, it all depends upon the number of accounts that are there. So everything is linked to the number of accounts. It's I think it's 25 rupees to a maximum of 2,500, which are for more than 200 plus accounts. So there is
Oh,
a
very good.
maximum cap which IB has kept is 2,500. That means for all your listed companies, which are all the big companies, whatever is there on the BSE and XC, 2,500 is the cap.
Which is nothing actually. And most private companies, let's say, would have 2 to 3 accounts. How much will it cost them?
2 to 3 accounts would be about 50 to 75. So as the volume increases, the price goes down.
Okay. No, I mean 2 to 3. So that means my client only has to agree to a debit of 75 rupees.
That's it, which will automatically be done, and only then the certificate will be generated.
It'll be very, very nice if you can also, in part of your presentation, incorporate this price chart. Because when my chartered accountant goes and asks the client to log in, we can tell them, sir, this is only going to cost you 75 to 100 rupees. So it's going to make it so simple. So you can come in.
We'll put
That's
that
the
chart
third thing.
also. We'll definitely put that, chart. And the second important thing, it's completely through a secured payment gateway. So, your members again don't have to worry about that at all. It is paid by the client as soon as there is a pro forma invoice which the client will first be presented with. Once he's only okay with the pro forma and he clicks okay on that, then it will go on to the making the payment. So first a pro forma is generated as to what are the number of accounts, etc. there, because he would not know. Technically, many times you would not even know how many accounts it has fetched, right? So it will first generate that pro forma for you. Once you're okay with the pro forma and you say okay, only then it will proceed for payment. So that also provision we've kept of a pro forma and final invoice.
Sure. And I'm now going to take the audience questions. The question number 1 is the internal auditor allowed to register in the portal?
So, sir, we have kept this portal. See, anybody who requires to seek a confirmation is ideally a user of this portal. Even banks themselves, I'll tell you, Cypriya, even banks themselves are going to be users, because when you are doing a consortium lending, many of the times the parties are required to confirm their balances to other banks and vice versa. So even banks are going to be users of this thing.
No, let me just extend this question. See, if I'm a client, right? I have an internal auditor who may not be a chartered accountant also. In which case also, can I give the access to a non-chartered accountant?
No, because right now the complete system is built where it will
Only for ICA
first
members.
check for the FR and MRN to be present.
Perfect.
If it is not present, then the module which I am talking about for your customers, that is a completely separate module which we are building for them to be able to provide balance confirmations to the consortium lending partners. That's completely different.
Sure.
But yes, without being a chartered accountant right now on this portal, because it will fail the first test itself where it has to verify or kind of go through the ICI system.
So it's like, some of our clients might even like to see their own accounts presented so well. So now they'll get it through the auditor, which is actually good.
So that's fine.
The
They can
answer
get
to
it
that
through
question would be yes, an internal auditor can register in the portal, provided he's a member of the CA Institute and he's part of the live database.
Absolutely.
Second question is whether the UAT process is chargeable to the client.
No, not at all.
No. So it's a free UAT process. In fact, on Monday, all the 1,500 attendees, Vivek, we've crossed 1,500, right? Can't hear you.
You are mute.
Sorry?
Ma'am, we have crossed 1,600.
Okay. So to all the 1,600 people who are attending the webinar, you'll get a very, very simple Google form link. Only 2 questions to be answered. One, would you like to have a smaller audience session of 100 people where we show you the portal? We can do this 3 times a week. And secondly, would you be willing to help us be a trainer to take this message across to the fraternity? Because our key challenge has been a lot of these mass mails go into spam. People don't look at SMSs. So if we can develop, like a 500 to 600 chartered accountants fleet on street across all branches, and I'm going to request Eric to give me his presentation. We can add the slides for the demos successively, and then we can use this as the same presentation material. So kindly fill up that Google link. We're very happy to assist you. The third is the digital confirmation inclusive for outstanding guarantees and LCs?
They are.
Eric, I have a small request. Can you go to that slide where you had put out everything that gets confirmed?
Yeah. So, Shripiya, I might not be the very right technical resource for answering some accounting questions. So
yes.
pardon me for that. Please pardon me for that. Yeah. So this is the one.
Yeah, you can go previously also. The previous slide also. Yeah, so if you see, I think this is very powerful for two reasons. If your client's bank account is tagged to his bank and the bank knows the PAN number, you're just going to get all the accounts of your client with that bank. Now, sometimes what could happen, and I've seen this in a few forensic cases which I've done, a bank account is not shown at all for ever so many years because it was only used to route funds. So somebody put 5 crores in that account, took 5 crores out of that account, and it never came into my books. And the opening balance also was zero, the closing balance was also zero, and from 2010 onwards, it's showing continue. I mean, the bank never got flagged until we did a forensic and we found this out from somewhere else. So these kind of issues will completely get sorted. But to answer Eric's question, Eric, can you just call out the headings? I mean, and
Yeah,
I
so
can.
there is, I can see there is a balance outstanding. So it has name of the facility, whether it's funded or non-funded. It has the account number. It has the currency.
Could you also go into the detail, or I can call it out for you?
Which details?
Cash
Ma'am?
credits, demand loans, overdrafts.
Yeah, these are all. Yeah. Cash
Bill
credit,
purchase,
demand loans,
discounted.
overdraft, bills purchased or discounted. You have term loans or project loans. Then these are 1, 2, 3, 4. That's just the numbering of
So
that.
that's the critical part they're asking. So you have bank guarantees, letters of credit,
Yeah.
Indian, letters of credit, foreign, standby letters of credit, forward contracts, and on the right side you have cash credit, demand loans, overdrafts. Next slide, please. You have, and the interesting thing is it gives you the limit, the drawing power, balance outstanding, the balance if it's a foreign currency loan, the balance in INR. It gives you the security, the rate of interest, the repayment terms, whether it's a restructured account or not, closure date, almost everything.
Everything.
And and another very good thing is, see, when you do this balance confirmation, two big chunks of your balance sheet are addressed. One is your bank balance, and another is your secured and unsecured loans from these banks. Today, I mean, we're talking a lot about digital assurance, Eric. We're talking about, how we use GST data to do our audits better. How do we use TDS data to do our audits better? And I think this would sort of cover 20% of my balance sheet and a very, very high risk item. So I think it's very interesting. And incidentally, you have your irregularities and defaults.
Yes.
Because your Schedule 3 also asks you some other questions, whether your client is a willful defaulter.
That's also there. Yeah. That's also there.
And another very nice thing is, look at a client not providing for their interest. I've seen many balance sheets where they've not provided for the interest, and the auditor rightly qualifies, saying that the interest is not provided for. But it could so happen that the interest amount is so material that it could impact your very going concern. So a lot of those very valuable insights will actually come from these independent balance confirmation procedures, which is now going to come very quickly. Let me just ask you one more question, Eric. What is the turnaround time for these banks?
No, there is so ideally a certificate, because this is connected directly via APIs. This certificate is literally instantaneous, right? But if it is generated or if these requests are given during the time that the banks are doing the day ends, etc., then there might be a little bit of time delay. But otherwise, they are near to real time and it's on a T-1 basis. That means as on yesterday, you can generate a certificate today because all the balances in loan accounts, etc., get only updated at the end of the day. So intraday certificates we are not providing for because it makes no sense to anybody, because most of the core banking systems, the entire data gets updated or interest calculations, etc., are all done at the end of the day. So T-1, you will be able to get these certificates near to real-time basis.
Great. And then I see another interesting thing. See, if it's going to be only 100, 200, 300, 500 rupees, I can generate my balance confirmation on 31st. I mean, depending on when I'm finishing my audit, and I get it in 2-3 days is also great because my audit period is usually at least 10, 15, 20 days. The next question,
first you can fire these certificates and keep it. They will be ready for you to download at any point in time.
Great. And the next question was, what would be the charges for the certificates? I think that has been addressed by Eric. Are deposits also covered through this system?
Yes. All of them, ma'am.
Could you
The
just show
first is the
that?
deposits, ma'am. The first one is all your current accounts, fixed term, everything.
Correct. So if you can see here, it's there. Current account, fixed deposit or term deposit, 1, 2, call money, everything is there. So, and it's very interesting. It gives you for active accounts and accounts closed during the period.
Even for assets, it's for closed accounts, ma'am. All your loan, cash credit, term loans, everything is for open as well as closed during the auditing period.
Sure. And I reckon I have another question. How far back in time can I get this? See, suppose I'm doing a forensic. Okay, and I've been asked to do forensic for the period, 19 to 21. Can I get my 21 also balance confirmation through this process, or?
Absolutely, ma'am. You can get it for any data that you've been there. Provided in 21 also you are the auditor. See, now there are two parts to it, ma'am. One is an auditor usage, one is a usage for enforcement people. So the enforcement people, really, we don't have a time date range. But for the auditing, you have to be an auditor, registered auditor at that point in time. So because we are connected directly to the systems, whether it be 31st of March 2025 or whether it be in 1997, once you have connected to the core banking, if the data is there in the system, this data will be available to you. Absolutely.
So again, see, I could be appointed, let's say, as a forensic auditor under IBC, but the client has to anyway provide this information. So anyway, it gets done.
That will be through a separate, then you have the entire module which I showed to you about these enforcement agencies, and that you will have to go there and we'll have to provide you access from there.
You mean you have a separate, no.
Yeah, I actually showed that in the modules which were there. One second, give me a second. I'll show you the modules.
Yeah, the 16 modules that you showed.
Yeah. So there is a validation in this module which is there. There is a verification of these balance confirmations which is there. Give me the second last from the right.
No, I agree. No. All I'm asking is, you said anybody who is a chartered accountant can be given access to the portal by the client, right? Now, when the client gives access, he's already given it to his statutory auditor. Now, let's say a bank has appointed me as a statutory auditor. Now, the client is obliged to also provide me access. When they provide me an access, do they specify a timeline and provide the access, or I can
No, they
go to
specify
any
a timeline that he is for what period he is the auditor for.
Super.
Right. So that is
so if
provided.
I'm doing
So in that case, they will provide, if a bank is giving you the access, then the bank becomes the client and they will provide, they will elongate that access and give you from the period that they want to give you from. Technically, as soon as the company actually logs in, he also tells that this particular auditor is my auditor for what period. Right. So before that period or after that period, you will not be allowed to generate that certificate, because either the period is expired, you will not be able to allow the certificate will not come, or if you put in any date range, which is, before your period, which is specified, then also the certificate won't come.
No, just to clarify again, see, a bank appoints me as a forensic auditor for a particular client.
Right.
So the client will then have to add my name and the period.
Perfect.
Got it. The next question is, from when is this operational? When are we actually going to go live?
So,
you said a few banks have come
5 banks ready for ICI for testing. 1 bank has completed. Canara Bank is completely live. We have another 5 in queue. As soon as we get a green signal from your side, moving into production is for a 24-hour job for us.
Yeah, but would we move into production with all 8 banks who have signed up, or you will want to do this only for 3, 5?
We'll do it for ma'am, as soon as, because only when we complete our UAT, we hand it over to you for doing the testing. We don't give you for testing till we've not completed. So once we have completed with all dummy data, see, we are not auditors. At the end of the day, we are doing testing based on some data.
Yeah.
Once you test it with your actual auditors, you do a round of UAT and give a thumbs up. In 24 hours, we'll move it to production.
Sure. But it's slightly complex because you're asking us to do a UAT of a live kind of situation where a client has to agree to come in, etc. There are challenges. We'll see how to, crowdsource this and help us to do it.
Sure.
Next question is it possible to get the copies of bank statements submitted by the auditees to the respective banks?
Bank statements currently is not here, ma'am, because they are so bulky. If we do that,
stock statements. Yeah, stock statements.
Okay. Yeah. Stock statements currently is not a part of this thing.
Okay. if the auditee selects, it may conceal, okay. Can the auditee or the client select the bank accounts, or he only gives his PAN number?
Selects the banks. He has no choice to select. Bank accounts are picked up by the PAN. He has no control over that, ma'am.
Okay, great. So which means if his PAN is tagged to his account, and anyway, RBI mandates that every account.
It's mandatory, ma'am. It's mandatory.
Is there a proper encryption and option for two-factor authentication?
Yes, every single thing is based on two-factor authentication only. Password and OTP only. Nothing is without two-factor.
Right. And Vivek, I'd like you to copy paste these questions or download the chat, because I think we also need to send these out to everybody else after the webinar.
Okay, ma'am, sure.
Yeah. Document to prove that it's a direct confirmation like an envelope, email, etc. Eric, does this create a transaction ID or something like that for me?
Every certificate creates a unique certificate number, which is digitally signed by the bank. Even the digital certificate of the bank can be validated, and the number for each certificate is unique, which is generated out of the system. And all audit trails and logs are maintained by us. So in case you want anything, you just have to request us. We will provide you with all the information as long as it's a legitimate user.
Sure. And I have another question. So as an auditor, I have my dashboard open all the time, right? So even if a client, later on I resign, when I open my dashboard, I'll get all the bank confirmations I've given, year-wise, client-wise, bank-wise, right?
See, once you download it, ma'am, it stays with you.
If I don't download,
sorry?
If I don't download it, how long does it stay in the system?
For eternity in the system. But then you have to request for it again. See, earlier, ma'am, there was a lot of debate whether we should keep the certificate open or within 24 hours. See, for us, it's a parameter. Whether right now we set it as 999 days, right? So there was a lot of debate that within, if a certificate is generated, should it get automatically out of the system, not available to you for download after 48 hours, 72 hours, how many? Or we keep it for eternity. So right now, the first
how long is it? How long have you kept it now?
No, right now we've kept it for eternity, ma'am.
Oh, great. That means if I download today and I save it in my system and I've forgotten something, I can always go back.
Download it again. Otherwise, what has to happen is the whole certificate will need to be generated again. Again, that person would need to pay.
The client has to pay again. So, right. Now, another thing is when an auditor makes the request, an alert goes to the client pays, and then I get the certificate.
Consent. No, client consent pays, is okay with the pro forma invoice, and then we proceed for final payment.
So at what stage does the client pay?
Ma'am, at the time of generating the certificate, there are 3 steps. First, he consents. There's a small tick box. He consents to all terms, conditions, everything. Second, he sees the pro forma invoice, number of accounts that have been there, total bill with the GST. Then he makes the payment. That's it. Once he makes the payment, a final invoice gets generated and given to him.
So ideal situation is I'm sitting in a client's office, a client sitting next to me. I do this, he also does this, and we come out of it. Is that what you're envisaging?
And ma'am, see, the client is only going to do this one.
Okay.
The next time he need not register, and all that is already done, right? If you're an auditor for 3 years, you need to do it the first time only.
No, I have a small doubt here. See, let's say today is Saturday. I'm the client, I've registered. I've identified Vivek as the auditor. Now, can I pay at this stage and close it, and then when Vivek asks, it will come? Or Vivek has to specifically ask, and on Monday at 12 o'clock when
Vivek asks, only this entire chain will get generated.
Okay, great. And what Vivek asks, the client will be able to see it on his dashboard, and Vivek would remind his client to pay. And as soon as he reminds him to pay and he pays it, Vivek,
the certificate is available for you to download.
Sure. Now, is the service available only to the partner? Can an auditor authorize his unqualified staff?
See, ma'am, now
I don't think
controls at the auditor's end is not something which we can control. Once the certificate is generated, you can give your password to anybody. For me, it is you who are accessing the system as far as the system is concerned.
Right? Correct. I would also think that this is something we as chartered accountants should not share our passwords, because when you share your password, all the clients, all the certificates become available to you.
Very sensitive information is there.
Yeah. In future, whether NBFCs would be covered?
Yes, 100%.
In case of FD confirmations, there are 30 to 40 FD confirmations of a client with one bank. What will be the approximate charges?
See, that's what I'm saying. So the charges are slab wise. I'll share the charges with you, ma'am. that will become it will become very, very clear with you. They are all slab wise. The higher the number of accounts, the lower the charge goes, but the maximum cap it is 2,500. That's the maximum cap which is there.
Sure. Can banks who are auditees get the confirmation of balances with other banks and RBI? RBI, I think, will be difficult.
RBI nahi, ma'am. RBI
Yeah.
no.
But if it is within
CAG
the
is
other
also
bank.
excluded. CAG is also, let me tell you, CAG is also excluded out of this thing.
Okay.
Because CAG specifically has told us not to make them part of this confirmation portal.
Is this facility available for non-corporate entities, especially individuals?
No, ma'am. It has to be an entity because at the time when the entity is getting registered, the entity PAN is getting checked.
No, individuals also have a PAN.
Individual, yeah. So as long as he has a PAN, valid PAN, he will be able to log on to the system.
Yeah. So your client can be a proprietor, it can be a partnership firm, it can be an association of person, it can be a trust, it can be a charitable society.
OCP, anything. One person company, OPC, anything can be there.
Now, the next question is not so much for Eric, but for me. It says whether such confirmation will be used for net worth valuation purpose. Absolutely. One of the assets will be balanced with banks, FDs, etc., liabilities. It will be incredibly helpful for your net worth valuation certificates. Are there any kind of automated alerts to all stakeholders when their data is accessed?
Yes, ma'am. Data cannot be accessed without the auditee providing explicit consent on the system. So he has to log into the system and he has to provide, as soon as our auditor requests for it, he will also get an SMS. The auditee will get an SMS. Whenever somebody has requested, the auditor can go to his portal. He will see what requests have been raised by which auditor, and he can select which to pay, which not to pay for. So that is the choice. Before he makes anything, he has to first consent and then make the payments.
A client has different customer ID for same PAN. Eric had explained this earlier. The generation is by PAN.
Yes.
For a particular PAN, all the accounts, assets and liabilities will be part of the confirmation.
Yes, ma'am.
If an auditor resigns mid-year, the question was actually answered by Eric right up front, so I'm skipping that question. Auditee is required to disclose the bank names. Yeah, that is obvious, right? That's part of your management representations. The auditee has to. So there was a question, if they don't disclose a bank name, how will I?
Can't help it.
You won't know. Hope the certificate can be generated for a desired date.
Yes, any particular date.
Yes.
Any date, ma'am. It's not necessary it's the 31st. You can generate it for as on 2nd, as on 3rd, whatever. It should be T-1. That's it.
Is there a refund policy if the auditor resigns? I think these are very exceptional circumstances. It will be very difficult to build all this in.
Currently, there is no refund policy, ma'am, because what is happening is at the payment gateway, as soon as the payment is made, we are crediting 3 accounts, bank with the respective bank charges plus GST, NESL for its charges, and PSB Alliance for its charges. So the refund is going to be very, very, very tedious.
Sure. So let's not even get into exceptions at the moment. We'll just go live first. Can a company register both statutory and internal auditors? Yes, Eric is very clear. Anyone who has a membership number, which is live with the ICI database, can do it. Are the certificates password protected?
Yes, they would be.
Okay.
They would be.
In case of a technical failure on the platform, will there be a manual backup process to ensure business continuity?
So let me tell you that our
NESL, if it fails, it fails.
It's in completely high availability mode. We have a data center and a disaster recovery site. Within the data center also, we are at high availability. That means we have an exact replica of the system within the same data center. That if it fails, then it will go to the DR. And within the DR also, we have 2 instances of the system. So it's very unlikely, but ma'am, we can never say. But our endeavor will be that within 24 hours, we'll bring the systems up.
How frequently is the system audited for accuracy, and is there going to be an independent oversight body?
Yeah, ma'am. We are an information provider to banks. All the 12, any bank audits us. All and every bank audits us because we are an outsourced party for the bank. So as per the RBI guidelines, whatever audit they have to do on PSB Alliance, they do that. And NESL also being a part of IBBI, being an information utility, is continuously audited by different stakeholders, including the government.
Okay. The platform will not have APIs that auditors can integrate. because that would compromise.
Yes.
The banks, obviously, they will have their APIs, which is why it gets linked to the NESL system. Whether this confirmation will hold good as audit evidence, indeed. Could end-use certificate be obtained? I don't think they're talking about all that at this point in time. Is there an attempt to tag cooperative banks? Yes, Eric had mentioned that progressively they'll want everybody to come in. Will interest accrued on fixed deposits be generated as a certificate? No. That's not the idea.
Not an interest
The
certificate.
idea is balance as at a particular date. So we hope this webinar was of use to you. And on Monday, please do look forward to the Google form. It's just got 5 questions: your name, your phone number, your membership number, your mail ID. Would you like to know more about this portal in a private session of about 100-150 people? And the last question will be, are you willing to come in as a trainer to do this very presentation that Eric did for you, and to do a live demo of the portal right across your branches, your regions, etc. So thank you very, very much, and have a very, very nice weekend. And immensely grateful to Eric for all this help.
Not at all, ma'am. It's our pleasure. And have a fantastic year end and a wonderful year next year in front of all of you all. We will be interacting very much with all of you all. And we've set up a dedicated help desk contact center for all of you all, ma'am, whether it be an auditor, whether it be an auditee. Everybody will get a dedicated toll-free number or a number which they can contact in case they are having difficulties. We will have people to guide you, train you, and take it forward. So we are there at all points in time.
Thanks, Eric, and thanks, Vivek, very, very much.
Thanks a lot, Vivek. Thank you, Shipriya. Thank you. Have a wonderful day ahead.
Thanks. Vivek, just dump all the questions on chat.
Yes, ma'am.
Thanks, Eric. Bye.